In this video, you're going to see how to change a mill belt on a Golf 6 Cube. When you first start, you want to remove the cover that is over the mill belt drive. After you remove the cover, you then remove the chain. You have to loosen up your roller adjusters and lift up on the roller adjusting plate so that you can relieve all the tensioning from your mill belt. After you get this lifted up, you can tighten these nuts back in. That'll hold that in place for now. Do that on both sides of the machine. Next, you want to remove all your inside liners that go around your barrel head. You have to remove all the nuts out here. There's 2, 4, 6, 7 nuts that are attached to these long bolts that hold in the liners. You have to do this to both sides. So go ahead and remove the inside liners. That's the way it should look with all the inside liners removed and just the barrel heads there. Screws on the bearings that hold in the rollers. That way you can remove the bearings and the roller plates from the rollers so that then the rollers can be removed from the mill belt. Ready? Yeah. Next, you remove the bearings. After you remove the bearing, then you can remove the backing plate that holds the bearing. Watch it because it's going to drop down because of all that weight of that roller, that front roller. After you get this side loose, do it to the other side, and then you remove the front roller. You can hook up a roller remover that we have, attach it to your fork on your tow motor, get it on the shaft of the roller, and just back that front roller right on out of there. Go ahead. Go on, you can just go, it ain't gonna get it slide right out of there. Now that the front roller is removed, you remove all the nuts on the lower adjusting plates and you remove the guides. Then what he's going to do is he's going to remove the bearing and a guide plate and all from the shaft. After he's done with that, he's going to go over on the other side and do the same thing. After you remove the bearing plates, there's inside plates. They're called guide plates that keep the mill belt in place. There's 4 bolts on the split set of guide plates. You got to remove those bolts and then remove the guide plate from the inside. That'll allow the roller to be free to be removed from the belt. Those guide plates are on your rear rollers. Both the lower and the upper rear rollers have those guide plates. After the guide plates are removed and your roller remover attached to your forklift is attached to the shaft of the roller, just back out and your roller will come right on out. Now that bottom back roller is removed, we will next remove the upper roller. That'll allow for the removal of the mill belt. Remove the guide plate on the upper roller after you've removed the bearing plates and the bearings. Do that to both sides. After you do that, and you have your attachment on the top roller shaft that's connected to the tow motor, you can just lift up and back that roller right out of the machine. And after you get that out, the mill belt is free to be removed.
Lean forward a little bit. That's good. Maybe lift up in here.
You set your mill belt back into the machine. You loop it so that the mill belt is up. Arrows on the mill belt are going in the proper direction. They point towards the mill belt going forward in the forward direction. Also a good way to tell if it's on there correctly. If you look into your mill belt, it says golf. You should be able to read the word golf as the mill belt's going around. Go. After you get your mill belt into position, you then run some straps through the top of the mill belt area where the top roller goes. Take it all the way through and run the strap on top of the machine and then ratchet the mill belt up. You can also put a strap, another strap through there and ratchet around the back of the machine. That way you can try and get a large enough opening through the mill belt so that the top roller will slide in easily. Finish installing the roller. Drop it. After you get your top roller in place, you then release the ratchet straps that you put in to hold up the mill belt and remove those. Next thing we're going to do is put the front roller in. To put the front roller in, we're then going to run a strap down through the front of the mill belt and out the other side. That way we can pull it forward and strap it up. That's good, Rick. Go ahead and pull that mill belt forward and start ratcheting it. What we'll then do is we'll stick a bar through the other side and we'll open up this mill belt and we'll just slide the front roller right on in. Okay, after you get the mill belt in place and ready to run the front roller in, just go ahead and start running it in. Once you start the roller through the mill belt, and after it starts through, you can leave go. It'll just find its way through, all the way through to the other side. Now that that mill belt's in place, you then can remove the ratchet strap that was pulling the belt forward. Next, just slide the rear bottom roller right on through the mill belt and set it down.
You're good.
Now you got all the rollers in place, so you'll start assembling the guide plates to the rear rollers along with the bearings and the bearing plates.
Go.
After you get the guide plates on the end of the rollers, you then put the bearings and the bearing plates on, and you lift up the roller, put them in place, and okay. After you get the bearing plate in place, go ahead and knock them in there. Put your nuts and lock washers on there. After you tighten that up, you continue on with the rest of the rollers the same way. After you get that top roller in place and the bearings and everything in there, before you tighten up the set screws on that, check to make sure that your roller's centered. Like on that end right there to the back of the centering plate, we've got like 1 inch. And on this side here, we've got like 1.5. So what we're going to do is we're going to move the whole shaft that way about 1/4 inch to equal it up on each end, and then we're going to tighten the set screws in place. Just go ahead and stick a pry bar in there and just move the whole shaft down. Remeasure it, and once you get it centered up, just tighten down your set screws and you're good on that top roller. That's good. Back rollers in, front rollers in. Tighten up the bearings and bearing backing plates. Okay, after you get the front bearing plates and bearings in place, before you lock the set screws in, line up that front roller. The way you're going to do that is by moving it. Now, if you look at each end of the bearing, look and see how much of the shaft is protruding out of the bearing. Get it equal on both ends. It looks pretty close. It maybe has to come back this way just a shade. So you can use a piece of brass or copper and just tap it a little bit. That should about do it. To me, that looks pretty even. You can use a tape measure or a ruler and make sure you're good. But after you get it lined up, go ahead and lock down your set screws and then go to your bottom rear roller and put that in place. Okay, take the bearings and bearing plate for the rear roller, assemble those, put them on the shaft, and put your guide plates in. Pull it back into place. Set that in there in between them guide plates, and put your outside locking plates on.
you're live.
Okay, go ahead and put your jack screw into the plate. You can start the nut down on there and tighten in the nut underneath of it and lock that jack screw in place on the plate. You still got room here so that when you adjust it up and down, you're good. Get my wrench. Okay, on the rear lower shaft, you're going to do the same thing as what you did on the front roller shaft, and that's line up the outside, the amount sticking of the shaft sticking out of the bearing. You want to have it equal on both sides of the. Looks pretty good to me on both sides now. You can go ahead and tighten down your set screws on your bearings. Okay, when you put the liners in, you want to get them adjusted properly with about an 1/8 inch gap in between the barrel head and the side liner. After you get that in there, go ahead and tighten down your outside nuts. I use screwdrivers to try and hold that gap.
Now go ahead.
Try and hold that gap all the way around on all your liners as best you can. Like this back liner here, when you do that one, you know, you got to pry it up there and then you got to pull it away from the mill belt. And here to get that gap there. Once I got that, then I go to the outside and tighten those nuts down. And that should be adjusted. Okay, next you want to put your drive gear on there. Go ahead and set your drive gear on there to start your taper lock. Okay, you want to go ahead and slide this down far enough back so that this is straight with your upper gear.
Go.
Go ahead and install your chain. To start adjusting your mill belt, loosen up all 4 of these nuts on your guide slide and then start tightening up this bottom nut on your jack screw to pull your plates down. Do that on both sides. What we're going to do on this particular one is you can see where the original mill belt was at by the rust spot here. We're going to go to like within 1/4 of an inch of that setting on both sides and then run the machine just to see how our mill belt's tracking and everything. And that allows us for more adjustment if we want to run the mill belt side to side. If everything's running good and everything looks good, we're just going to tighten everything down. After you get the mill belt tracked to the middle position, you then want to go around and tighten down the nuts that hold your adjusters in place. After that's all done, go ahead and run a load of parts in there and make sure that everything stays where it's supposed to be. If not, you may have to retract the mill belt again.